You know, what's interesting is that if you think about it, right now, there aren't really any teams in the MCU. At least, not any that we've really seen. I mean, sure, we got things like the post-credit scene for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, where we saw Shang-Chi and Katie with Wong, and Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner were there via holograms. That's kind of the closest that we've came to seeing a full team in the MCU. Although I guess the Guardians of the Galaxy would technically be a full team, however, they kind of disbanded at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and a new Guardians team was created. But right now, we don't have an Avengers team, even though there are talks, and it looks like this could be all but confirmed, that there are going to be 2 Avengers teams in Avengers Doomsday. In fact, it sounds like there's going to be a ton of different teams and a ton of stories going on. Of course, they'll all flow into one giant story, and all should lead to Doom, which is Marvel's plan to go bigger and better than Avengers Infinity War. Now, just so everybody is aware, I am specifically comparing Avengers Doomsday to Avengers Infinity War. For the most part of what we are talking about today, we are not going to be talking about Endgame or Secret Wars, but we'll specifically be talking about how Marvel Studios is planning on making Avengers Doomsday bigger than Avengers Infinity War, which some people right now state isn't really possible. And I would also argue that Avengers Doomsday being just as big and as great as Avengers Infinity War would be amazing. But let me know if you think they could actually go bigger than Infinity War in the comments down below, and maybe your mind will change after this video if that answer right now is a no. Now, Infinity War was already a big movie because we had teams colliding with each other. And for the most part, for Avengers Infinity War, if you break it down, we can break off 3 different teams. Captain America and all of the Avengers in Wakanda with Black Panther. We have Thor, Rocket, and Groot, who eventually do wind up in Wakanda, after their own adventure though. And then of course we have all of the Avengers and the Guardians on Titan. Plus Doctor Strange. Some people say that he wasn't technically an Avenger before Civil War. And I say this because in Avengers Doomsday, he might be having his own storyline separate from the Avengers, but we'll get to that. So in Avengers Infinity War, we had 3 different teams. That's already a lot, but it was epic. And even if you just multiplied that by 2, that's pretty crazy. 6 different teams, but that's what we're looking at for Avengers Doomsday. In fact, probably a little bit more. If we break it all down, we're probably going to have 7 teams in Avengers Doomsday, so we're already more than times 2. So as far as bigger is concerned, they can go bigger simply by adding more characters. And we know that Marvel Studios is planning for a ton of characters to be in Avengers Doomsday. Back in June, Deadline reported that more than 60 MCU characters could reprise their roles in Avengers 5. So we already know that Marvel Studios has plans for a ton of characters in the next Avengers film. And like I said, we can pretty much break it off into 7 different teams, plus individual character stories that should be happening at the same time. First, we have our actual Avengers team. We'll learn more about this in Captain America Brave New World. In the trailer that was shown at D23, it had scenes that weren't included in the trailer that Marvel released to the public on YouTube, and it showed us a scene of President Ross telling Sam Wilson that he wants the Avengers to be formed again and he wants Captain America to do it. So this should be the start of our Avengers team coming together. Now, who will that consist of? As far as we know, obviously Captain America, his sidekick now, Joaquin Torres as Falcon, then probably those that were in the post-credit scene of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Shang-Chi, Captain Marvel, Bruce Banner, and Wong. And then of course, probably Spider-Man. And of course, there are some other characters that could show up like She-Hulk and possibly characters like Moon Knight. How will they bring characters like Moon Knight into it? We're not sure yet. We're not sure if some of these characters will make it into it since there are already going to be so many characters, and you'll see by the time we're done with this list. Because we have the normal Avengers, but then we have the West Coast Avengers, which were recently teased by Marvel executive Brad Winderbaum. In a report with the Phase Hero podcast, he stated that in shows like Wonder Man and Vision Quest, we are going to see some aspects and components of the West Coast Avengers. And he said that fans of Wonder Man from the comics are going to be pretty satisfied with what they do in the show. To top this off, several different insiders have also stated that they hear a West Coast Avengers team is coming. So this team could consist of characters like Wonder Man, Vision, Ant-Man, and the Wasp could possibly be a part of that team. Hawkeye and maybe Kate Bishop can be a part of that team as well, because Hawkeye is in the comics. And if Wanda returns and is a part of a team, she might be a part of that team, although we are going to talk about her specifically in just a little bit. So we have the Avengers, the West Coast Avengers, and of course the Thunderbolts are coming. There'll be another team, but I think they might actually kind of fuse with the Avengers, because if you think about it, Sam's team, Captain America's team, and Bucky, the Winter Soldier's team, which is the Thunderbolts, would naturally fuse together when Sam and Bucky run back into each other, especially if they're going to fight the same person. And a lot of people think that that asterisk on the Thunderbolts name that Marvel Studios put on there could be because they're the Thunderbolts for now, but will eventually just be the Avengers. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Then, of course, we have the Fantastic Four. And with the Fantastic Four, we're not just getting the Four, but we should be getting Sue Storm and Reed Richards' son, Franklin Richards, as well. In fact, the recent rumors about the Fantastic Four state that Galactus wants Franklin Richards, and that's why it's kind of personal against the Fantastic Four, and he goes for Earth. We'll have to wait and see on that exact plot point, but we have seen some leaked set photos of Vanessa Kirby holding a baby on set, which is assumed to be her son, Franklin Richards. Then we have the Guardians of the Galaxy, and this one's kind of a question mark. Obviously, Peter Quill is going to return because that's what it said at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The legendary Star-Lord will return, but we're wondering at this point in time if that means just Star-Lord is going to return for these Avengers films, or will the other Guardians be returning with him? And if it is the other Guardians as well, is it just the new team that Rocket is leading, or will Mantis come back and Drax come back? Because here's the thing, either way could work, because Quill is now on Earth, and he knows the Avengers, he knows Doctor Strange, he fought alongside them in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, so when stuff goes down on Earth, he could simply go and help them, or he could call for his old team, because I'm assuming he still has some way to get in contact with them. So when things start to go down on Earth with Doom, he'll probably call for them. So we're gonna count the Guardians. That's 5 teams already. The next team is the Young Avengers, and that's already basically been set up in the MCU with the ending of the Marvels. Kamala Khan meets with Kate Bishop and they talk about Ant-Man's daughter, plus now we have Wiccan. We're about to have Speed as well, since Agatha and Billy are going to look for Billy's brother Tommy, aka Speed. We do have Cassie Lang, Ant-Man's daughter, and Alex Perez from the Cosmic Circus recently stated that in Avengers Doomsday they might do a type of Children's Crusade storyline. There's a lot to it, but basically Billy and Tommy reunite, they discover they're brothers, they discover they're the reincarnations of Wanda's kids, and that the Scarlet Witch is their mother. So eventually, they do go on to find her, and she is with Doom, which we're about to talk about. But of course, last but not least, we have the Fox X-Men of the 10,005 universe, which is the universe that Deadpool and Wolverine currently reside in. In the comics, the Secret Wars run basically starts off with only 2 universes and Earths being left. If they're planning on doing something like that in the MCU, then the 2 universes that are going to be last are probably our main 616 Earth, and then of course the 10,005 Earth. So an incursion is coming. So the Fox X-Men and Deadpool and Wolverine and all of them, they're coming to the MCU. Well, they're already in the MCU now officially since Deadpool and Wolverine, so they're coming to the main 616 timeline. Besides, we do have to see why Thor was crying. Why was Thor holding Deadpool? That has to be addressed in Avengers Doomsday or Secret Wars. But regardless, the X-Men and Deadpool and Wolverine make their way to the sacred timeline. So that's 7 teams. Again, already 2 times bigger than Avengers Infinity War. But we then have possible outliers like Doctor Strange. Alex Perez recently stated that he has heard that in Avengers Doomsday, Doctor Strange will have been doing whatever he's doing with Clea for about 2 years. So if we don't get a Doctor Strange 3 before Avengers Doomsday, then there's going to be a lot of story for Doctor Strange in Doomsday. So that could be a whole other story separate from all of these teams. And like I mentioned, you then have the Scarlet Witch. At this point, it's basically all but confirmed that she's returning. Based on some things that insiders have stated, it doesn't sound like she's going to get a solo film before the end of the multiverse saga, maybe after, but not before Secret Wars, which means her return is most likely going to be in Avengers Doomsday. However, here's the catch. A couple of different insiders like Alex Perez and Daniel RPK have heard that she is actually, or I should say she might be, with Doom. Now, as I mentioned before in the Children's Crusade story, they go and they find the Scarlet Witch with Doom. And when I say with Doom, she's with him. They're engaged and they're about to get married. Now, there's a little asterisk there because Wanda basically didn't remember anything. Remember anything of her past, House of M, No More Mutants, anything like that. But here's the kicker. Even when Billy, her son, finds her and tells her everything, and even when the Avengers and the X-Men show up, she still wants to get married to Doom. Unfortunately, ultimately, Doom ends up choosing power over the Scarlet Witch, so they don't get married. But in that story, Wanda does reunite with her children, which is probably what we'll see happen in Doomsday. So there's that story as well. And to top it off even more, we have the story of Doctor Doom, which cannot be taken lightly. They have to do an amazing job with his backstory in Avengers Doomsday. And since it's titled Doomsday, we are going to get a good chunk of his story, just like we did with Thanos in Avengers Infinity War. And to top it all off even more, and this is the final thing that I'll say about specific characters, but to top it all off, we have Robert Downey Jr. playing Doctor Doom. I mean, Robert Downey Jr.'s return to the MCU automatically makes it just a really huge movie already. So you have all of these individual teams all kind of going into the same story, leading to Doom and leading to incursions and the destruction of the entire multiverse. It's gonna be a huge movie. It is going to be bigger than Infinity War. The only question is, will the quality be the same or better? The potential is certainly there. This has the potential to be better than Infinity War, which is hard to say because Infinity War is regarded by many people out there as the best MCU movie that we've gotten, a 10 out of 10. I know there's a lot of people out there that prefer Infinity War over Endgame. So if you think about that, this movie really does have amazing potential. Let's hope that Marvel Studios delivers. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below. Do you think this is going to be bigger? Do you think Doomsday will be bigger and better than Infinity War? Please let me know in the comments. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest MCU news, rumors, or leaks. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.